John Jones, get your together. I'm waiting for you.
Who the fuck is that guy?
DC.
Hey guys, I'm the dog from the Buck and the Dog, and this is the first episode of UFC Talk to Talk. We're going to start with UFC 214, just happened yesterday, July 29th, 2017, and we're going to jump right in with the main event. Daniel Cormier versus John Jones 2. And it was much better than I anticipated. I thought it was going to be a fairly boring fight, and turns out it was almost a war. About the next thing below a war is what that fight was. They went out there and they threw hands. They slugged it out for the first round. Real close. DC getting hurt, John Jones getting hurt. It was amazing. It was a damn good first round. So the first round, DC, John Jones, they go out there and they get it. They're throwing hands, throwing bombs, rocking each other much better than I possibly could have imagined. There was only one time where they were on the ground. It was for a brief second. Super close first round. I'd probably give it to John Jones. But then we go into the second round, and DC actually begins to start outstriking John Jones. It was a really good round for DC. No takedown attempts. So DC has no intention to go on the ground. He is out there to knock John Jones out to cement his legacy. And he put in a hell of a second round. I'd give it to him almost clearly. John Jones, of course, had great offense in the second round, but towards that end, DC, he started attacking him. And we go into the third round, starts getting a little slower, almost about the same as the first round. They're both even, almost feeling each other out again, and then John Jones unleashes this devastating head kick. DC leans his head right into it, and plow! DC is on noodle legs. Goes flying back. John Jones uncorks a flying knee, drops DC, gets on top of him, John Jones with the finish. Amazing main event, better than I thought the fight would be. And John Jones wins his light heavyweight title back. He hasn't fought since OSP, and that was a while ago. John Jones has had like a 2-year layoff. So for him to come in and beat DC, whose only 2 losses now are to John Jones, and we all know John Jones, the cocaine, and the hit and run accident, all the other demons and such he was dealing with, to come back and to beat DC for the belt. It's pretty amazing. Noteworthy, his post-fight interview was pretty good too. He seemed to bury the hatchet with DC. He said great things about him and whatnot. For DC, it was pretty upsetting, almost hard to watch. DC had no idea where he was, thought the fight was still going on. And when Joe Rogan does finally interview him, he's completely upset. And he has a reason to be, too. Obviously, his championship legacy, it means something, but to him, it's never going to mean anything. He never beat John Jones. If it wasn't for John Jones losing the belt in the first place, DC most likely would never have been champion. So it's unsettling to see the way DC is at the post-fight interview. All in all, main event was fantastic. It was great. I loved it. And even in the post-fight interview, John Jones calls out Brock Lesnar. Where is that going to go? What's going to happen with that? I don't know. We'll see. Do you want to see John Jones fight Brock Lesnar? You want to see John Jones move up to heavyweight to fight Brock Lesnar? We'll see where that goes. And we go to the next fight, which was a snooze fest. Very boring. Tyron Woodley versus Demian Maia. I really thought it'd either be a first-round knockout for Woodley or a second, maybe third round submission for Demian Maia. It was a sluggish 5-round fight. Really boring. Demian Maia goes, I think, 0 for 20 with takedowns. Doesn't get a single one. You know, he's not going to throw much, obviously. Demian Maia isn't much of a striker. But he can't get any of his takedowns. Tyron Woodley hesitant the entire fight. He doesn't unleash his power, I should say. He doesn't throw enough. He does drop Maia, I think, in the second round, but he doesn't do anything with it. He doesn't get on top of him. He doesn't do anything. They're both can't get their game going, and it creates a very boring fight. Tyron Woodley does end up with the decision win at the end. Crowd boos. I'm booing. The fight was just really, really bad. And it was a shame, too. Personally, I really wanted Damian Maia to win. He's my favorite active fighter today. But he doesn't get the belt. Boring fight. Woodley gets to the win. There isn't much else to say about the fight. The next fight we're going to talk about is Cyborg versus Tanya Evinger. I think everyone knew Cyborg was going to absolutely demolish her, and she did. It was a 3-round ass whooping. I give it to Tanya Evinger. She took everything Cyborg had, big punches, big kicks, and she eventually fell down in the 3rd round. But Cyborg, finally she gets her UFC belt. She annihilates Evinger and sends a message to any other female fighter that you're going to get knocked out if you fight Cyborg. It's as simple as that. I'm not even sure if Cyborg is going to fight again. It's so hard for her to get a fight. Nobody wants to fight her. So we'll see where that goes. But other than that, Cyborg proves she is a dominant female fighter. Absolutely killing Evinger. The Robbie Lawler-Donald Cerrone fight, I thought had the makings to be a war. Or at least either Lawler or Cerrone was going to dominate the fight. That's not how it was at all. It was actually a fairly boring contest. It starts off amazing, probably one of the best first minutes I've ever seen in a fight. Lawler goes out there and just throws everything he has at Cerrone. He tries to finish him, get him out of there in the 1st round, and Cerrone, he eats it all. It doesn't end him, obviously. But Lawler puts everything he has in that 1st minute, and then it starts to slow down. The 1st round ends. You can probably give Lawler that 1st round. We go into the 2nd round, and it's really slow. It's just Cerrone throwing a few straights, a few jabs. Lawler, I think, threw 3 total strikes the whole round. Just not doing anything. Very boring. You easily give Cerrone that round. He threw way more strikes than Lawler did, but it was still boring. And in the 3rd round, almost much of the same as the 2nd one. Lawler threw a little more, but he didn't do enough to do anything. He didn't threaten Cerrone. Cerrone didn't even do anything to threaten Lawler. So it's another pretty boring round. You give it to Cerrone, and then we get to the decision, and you would think Cerrone would win. 2 rounds to 1. And then Robbie Lawler gets the decision win. Pretty strange. I don't think Lawler got that win. He might have won the 1st round with his blitz he did there in the 1st minute. But that was it. Cerrone probably should have gotten that win. He didn't. All in all, the fight was nowhere near as what I would imagine it to be. So then the 1st fight of the pay-per-view. My God, the 1st fight of the pay-per-view. I would have no idea this would happen if you told me a day before. Jimmy Manuwa versus Volkan Ozdemir. I didn't even know who Ozdemir was until this fight. I seen him knock out Misha Cirkunov in his last fight, and that was it. That was all I ever heard of the guy. He goes out here, and he knocks Jimmy Manuwa out in like 40 seconds of the 1st round. It is crazy. It is an amazing way to start the pay-per-view off. He goes out there, they go out there, they close the distance, and he just kills Manuwa. The strike he throws doesn't even look like it has a whole lot of power on it either, but boy, does it. Jimmy Manuwa drops, and he's dead. Ozdemir knocks him clean out. And if you don't know who Volkan Ozdemir is, you will now. Absolutely crazy fight. Amazing knockout. Usually I wouldn't talk about prelims, but because of these prelims being so good and this entire card was amazing, we have to talk about it. The main event to the prelims, Ricardo Lamas versus Jason Knight. I assumed Ricardo Lamas would win this fight. Probably dominate Jason Knight, and that's exactly what happened. Ricardo Lamas is title contender material, and Jason Knight is only a prospect coming up, really. He's good, he ain't Ricardo Lamas good. So the 1st round I go out there, and Ricardo Lamas tags him really early, and he just destroys him. Pinpoint accuracy. Jason Knight is getting clobbered. The ref is forced to step in about 4 minutes into it. They stop the fight. Jason Knight, he complains, he argues about the stoppage, but there was nothing he was going to do. Jason Knight was getting killed by Ricardo Lamas. And it's exactly a performance I expect from Ricardo. So it was a great fight, another TKO. Awesome. Before that, Aljamain Sterling versus Renan Barão. I thought now we'd see championship Renan Barão. He'd get back to his old ways. He'd be really good striking, jiu-jitsu, wrestling. And no, we got the opposite. We got the shit Renan Barão, who's been fighting his last 5 fights. Sterling practically was better in every aspect. Wrestling, stand-up, all of it. Sterling dominated them for all 3 rounds to a unanimous decision win. It was just really surprising to see Renan Barão. He's yet to snap his cold streak. All of his losses recently are to top dudes. You can't beat him. He ain't going to be champion again. His only 2 wins recently are to nobodies. So Renan Barão, he's probably done. I don't think he's ever going to make a run again. And Sterling, we'll see where he goes. Pretty good win for him. He didn't beat championship Renan Barão, but he beat Renan Barão nonetheless. Brian Ortega versus Renato Moicano. Fight of the night, and if for a good reason. You're probably wondering, well, you just said earlier that Jon Jones in DC was a crazy fight, which it was. But if you miss Brian Ortega versus Renato Moicano, you're going to be sorry. They go out there and they slug it out. It is a war. They're both throwing bombs. It's strange. Brian Ortega is usually known for his wrestling and his submissions, but I don't remember him even shooting for a takedown in that fight. He was out there looking for a knockout, and it was awesome. It was amazing. Now, Moicano was obviously the much better striker. He was tagging Ortega the entire fight. Brian just couldn't get his rhythm going. So in the 3rd round, it looks like Moicano is going to easily win with a unanimous decision because he's been teeing off on him the entire fight with his striking. And he shoots for a takedown right into Brian Ortega's guillotine, locks it in, and gets the submission victory. An amazing comeback for Brian Ortega. It was awesome. I can absolutely see why they gave it fight of the night. Brian Ortega with a submission after a crazy brawl. Great fight. And then the first fight, the prelims, Andre Fili versus the debut of Calvin Kattar. This fight wasn't anything special. It wasn't a crazy knockout, crazy submission, big comeback. It was just Andre Fili, who's regarded as a fairly decent prospect, got outclassed by a guy making his debut in Calvin Kattar. Kattar goes out there, great striking performance, stands toe-to-toe with Fili, and just outclasses him. It was really good fight for Kattar. Andre Fili, where does he go from this? I don't know, man. Kattar even gets some takedowns on Fili. It shows that he's a well-rounded fighter. Kattar's a guy you might want to keep your eyes on now. He might make a run. Who knows? Phenomenal debut, though, for him, nonetheless. Going out there and beating Andre Fili, he won each round easily. So really good debut for Calvin Kattar. As for the early prelims, I don't usually watch them. I didn't this time, so we're not going to talk about that. And that was UFC 214, an amazing pay-per-view. Thank God, really. UFC's last few cards have been fairly boring. The whole year has been a very boring time for UFC. But 214, that was a good UFC card. Hopefully, they make some more good cards like this. We'll see. It looks like the next few cards are pretty boring. And that's UFC 214, Talk to Talk. I'm the dog from the Buck and the Dog YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe and you will hear me after the next UFC event.